There's no doubt that there are some very questionable videos on YouTube, but most of that type of content is usually harmless. But there are some videos that don't hold up over time, and while they were once seen as innocent, they now seem sinister and disturbing. Number 10. The YouTuber Tor Eckhoff, better known by his scream name Apour, had gained more than 1.2 million subscribers to his channel before he lost his life in November of 2021, leaving his followers stunned. Apour created his YouTube channel in 2006, and right from the start it was obvious that he had a love for the outdoors, but also for his favorite drink, vodka. Most of the videos that were uploaded to his channel were filmed in Norway, but he's also traveled to other countries around the world at times. As the years passed by, his audience started to grow, and before long he became a well-known YouTuber with a good rapport with his followers. He would often create and take part in dangerous stunts, such as walking on thin ice while having a few shots of vodka, which many people thought was a very bad idea. Other videos showed him going on road trips to different areas in his home country of Norway, and boat trips on freezing waters, such as lakes in the area. But many people warned him that his luck would run out one day, and that he might just regret taking part in the stunts that he filmed. On the 22nd of November, he uploaded a video to his channel titled, "I'm Not Dead, I'm 57 Today." And to accompany this revelation, he performed yet another stunt. The video, which is still available on his channel, starts with a shot of a bath full of water, which is sitting in a forest, presumably in his hometown. He's then seen submerging himself in the cold water with the number 57 written in black ink on his forehead. He seems to be in a good mood as he wishes himself a happy birthday and takes a swig from the bottle of vodka. He then gets dressed and takes a walk through the forest while continuing to consume alcohol and making crazy noises for the camera. At one point, he brandishes and uses a chainsaw, which is ill-advised after consuming alcohol. And when he gets back into the bath, we can see that the water has started to freeze over. The entire video is just a bit of fun as he celebrates his birthday, and it ends with Apour throwing shards of ice back into the bath, and it's clear that he's had a great day. Unfortunately, while filming his next video, things went horribly wrong while he was out on the ice once more. On the 27th of November, just 5 days after uploading his birthday video, he decided to create more content while walking on a section of thin ice sheets, but a large crack formed in the ice and he was unable to get to safety in time. He ended up in the freezing water, and passers-by heard his cries for help as he was unable to find his way back onto the ice. They managed to pull him out, and he was rushed to the local hospital, but the next day, he sadly passed away. Number 9. When Marcos Trengolas, the chief of the Cyprus Police Department, was asked to comment on a string of crimes that had been carried out in the country, he stated that he had seen many things during his time in the department, but that the discovery of 2 bodies in a lake was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The lake in question is located about 20 miles outside of the Cypriot capital of Nicosia, and the bodies that were recovered there were attributed to a man who proclaimed himself to be a serial killer. But it's likely that these crimes would never have been linked to this culprit, as his first victim was discovered entirely by chance. The police were notified when a group of bikers found a woman's remains in a flooded mine shaft while they were riding on dirt roads in the area. During the resulting investigation, more victims were identified, and it became clear that the same person was responsible for ending their lives. Evidence that was collected at these sites led the authorities to a Greek Cypriot army captain named Nikos Metaxas, who confessed that he was the culprit. In his confession, a 10-page document that was written by Metaxas while being questioned, he stated that he sought out women who were working low-pay household jobs and then ended their lives. Following his instructions and directions, the police were eventually able to recover the remains of 7 victims, and further search efforts were carried out in case the man had hidden more bodies. In one instance, remains were found inside a suitcase that had been weighed down with a cement block. People have been left outraged by Metaxas' attitude towards his victims, as he is, according to some sources, unapologetic due to the fact that they hailed from foreign countries. 4 of the women were from the Philippines, while the 5th and 6th victims were Romanian. The remains of a woman believed to be from Nepal were also later recovered. They had all relocated to Cyprus to take jobs as household staff members, and alarmingly, when one of the Philippine victims was reported as missing, the attending police officer stated that he was too old and didn't have time to concern himself with Filipino women. These crimes have had a profound effect on the country, as they laid bare the incompetence of the police force and their unwillingness to investigate crimes involving foreigners. As a result, the country's police chief was fired, since his delay in ordering an investigation resulted in more victims being attacked. This came after protests were held and attention was drawn to the police's inaction. The newly appointed police chief has since apologized to the families of the victims and has vowed to improve the actions of his officers. In a strange turn of events, it was revealed that 2 years before Metaxas was apprehended, one of his victims may have been caught on camera in a YouTube video posted to the channel of vlogger Sarah Funk. In 2017, she visited Cyprus and filmed a section of video which is no longer available on the platform, at Mitsero Red Lake, where many of the remains have since been found. At one point, Sarah bends down to take a photo of a box-shaped item in the water, and she can be heard saying that she felt like death was hanging in the air. It's now believed that the object was one of the suitcases that contained one of the women's remains. Number 8. According to those who knew 24-year-old store clerk Sydney Loofe, who hailed from Lincoln, Nebraska, she was a diligent person who took her responsibilities very seriously. Hence, when she failed to show up for work at a Menards store on the 16th of November, 2017, her coworkers immediately became concerned. Her friends and family tried to contact her by phone, but got no answer, and they contacted the police to report her as missing. When officers arrived at her house, they noted that everything seemed to be in its place, and there were no signs that anything sinister had happened. But when they looked at her social media accounts, they noted that she last posted a photo of herself with the caption, "Ready for my date." It was then discovered she'd been talking to a woman named Audrey on Tinder, and that this would be their second date. When no trace of Sydney was found, the FBI stepped in and found that her phone was last picked up by a tower in Wilbur, about 40 miles from Lincoln, at an apartment owned by a pair of career criminals, Bailey Boswell and her boyfriend Aubrey Trail. Their criminal histories included check fraud, scams, and theft that had been carried out against antique dealers, and as far as the police knew, the couple had never been involved in any violent crimes. But upon reaching that apartment, Boswell and Trail had already fled. It was noted, though, there was a very strong odor of bleach, which suggested they had cleaned up a crime scene, since only sections had been cleaned, while the rest of the apartment was dirty and in disarray. Among some of the evidence collected was a dog leash, duct tape, zip ties, a hatchet, a book about anatomy, and a cloth that was covered in biological material. Searches of bodies of water in the area were carried out, and the police announced that they were looking to question Boswell and Trail. That's when the couple decided to do something very strange. They started uploading videos to YouTube in which they professed their innocence. They confirmed that they'd met up with Sydney that night, and that they had ingested illegal substances. But they claimed to have dropped her off at a friend's house when the date was over. Trail admitted that he was a career criminal, but remained adamant that he had never ended anyone's life. They blamed the media for the fact that they couldn't go home, and insisted they were not running from the law. They were eventually traced to Branson, Missouri, where they were arrested for a previous crime, during which they had stolen gold coins. This came after Trail stated in one video that they would be surrendering to the police, but that never happened. Boswell's phone was used to track her movements to Clay County in Nebraska, and there Sydney Boswell's remains were located. 13 bags of Sydney's remains were found. Trail confessed, claiming an accidental death, a story Boswell corroborated, but text revealed Boswell lured Sydney to the apartment under false pretenses. CCTV footage showed the couple buying tools for dismemberment hours before the date. Trail received a death sentence, and Boswell, life in prison. Number 7. Manoj Kumar Singh is the creator of a YouTube channel called Change Your Life. In his videos, he directs his followers on how to invest their money wisely and how to improve their lives in general. In one of his latest videos, he could be seen speaking about crime and the effects that it has on people's lives. He also encourages anyone who's listening to stay away from crime, since spending time in jail not only brings your life to a halt, but also affects the rest of your life once you are released. Ex-prisoners often struggle to find gainful employment once they've served their time, since employers would much rather hire someone with a clean record for obvious reasons. They find it hard to trust someone who's proven themselves to be on the wrong side of the law, even if they have turned over a new leaf. It's good, solid advice from Manoj, there's no denying that, but it seems that he failed to follow his own philosophy, as he's now spending time in prison in India, his home country. Manoj, who's referred to in news articles as a motivational speaker, has now been accused of being a criminal, and according to many sources, he doesn't have a defensive foot to stand on. The police in his hometown responded to complaints about Manoj, and when they questioned him, they found cause to search his home. When this was done, they found gold ornaments, a large amount of cash, a two-wheeler, and an iron rod that authorities believe he used to force his way into people's homes. They were stunned by the fact that he was giving motivational talks on his YouTube channel, when in broad daylight he was prowling the streets looking for his next victims. Number 6. With a YouTube channel name like Professor Waffle, one might be forgiven for thinking that its creator, an apprentice crane operator named Jack Davison, who often refers to himself as the Terminator, would have a sunny disposition, and that the content he uploaded would be lighthearted. But that's not the case. In many of his videos, he can be seen talking about how hard it was for him to meet someone with whom he could have a romantic relationship. He often spoke about nihilism, and in one particular video, stated that his years of hitting the gym and trying to improve himself had done nothing to improve his situation. He made sure to tell his viewers that they shouldn't give up, but added that he saw little point in continuing these improvements, since he felt beaten down by life. In one video that was uploaded in July of 2021, he outright stated that he developed a hatred for women. And while this may seem shocking, it was nothing compared to what he did next. On the 12th of August that same year, he and his mother, 51-year-old Maxine, got into a heated argument while in their house in Plymouth, England. Jake, who was known to be a steroid user, grabbed her by the neck and then forced her into one of the house's bedrooms, where he then locked her in. Understandably, she panicked and grabbed a phone to call a family member for aid, but by this time, Jake had gotten his illegally owned firearm and discharged it twice, hitting Maxine from just a few feet away and instantly ending her life. He then fled from the house, but ran into 43-year-old Lee Martin and his daughter, who were walking their dog. Without any reason whatsoever, Jake fired at them and also ended their lives. He then turned towards his neighbor's house and fired through the windows, injuring Michelle Parker and her son, Ben. Ben Parsonage, who saw Jake outside before he had fired, stated that he had a look of satisfaction on his face while firing the weapon, and it seemed to him as if the attacker didn't have a care in the world, despite having just ended 3 people's lives. He then walked into a nearby park where he encountered 59-year-old Stephen Washington, and he too lost his life while walking his dog. But Jake wasn't done yet. He continued walking, and outside a salon, noticed 66-year-old artist Kate Shepard, who'd been doing some shopping. Again, from just a few feet away, he fired at her 3 times, and by all accounts, Kate had no chance of survival. The entire incident lasted no more than 8 minutes, and at last, Jake decided to flee. He ran down a side street, but inexplicably then turned around and returned to the spot where Kate had been attacked. By this time, the authorities were on the scene and an officer had spotted him. The officer told him to stay where he was and to place his firearm on the ground, but Jake didn't comply, and in the end, he also lost his life. The incident sent shockwaves through the community, and the lives of the families of those who perished were left shattered. Number 5. The Stokes twins YouTube channel belongs to twin brothers Alan and Alex Stokes, and while the content they upload may not be everyone's cup of tea, The prank videos they've created have garnered the pair millions of subscribers. One video that was uploaded in August of 2017, which is entitled Prison Drive-Thru Prank, sees one of the brothers dressing up like an inmate with handcuffs hanging from one wrist. The other brother is acting as a hostage who has tape over his mouth, and the pair film the reactions of drive-thru staff while the prisoner orders some food. That video alone has been viewed more than 25 million times, and it's clear that they have a dedicated audience. While these types of pranks can often go wrong and land someone on the wrong side of the law, the twins have always escaped unharmed. But in October of 2019, they took it one step too far. They ordered an Uber ride, and when the driver arrived, he was shocked to find the pair donning balaclavas and dressed in all-black clothing. They were also carrying bags that were stuffed with currency, giving the impression they just pulled off a successful bank robbery, but needed an Uber ride to make their getaway. Understandably, the driver was taken aback and immediately refused to continue the ride, and someone who'd witnessed the entire exchange decided to contact the police. When they arrived, they found the twins still sitting in the car, and while pointing their firearms at him, ordered the Uber driver to get out of the vehicle and lie on the ground. They had no idea that the incident was supposed to be a prank, and that the driver was in no way involved. Once this was determined, he was free to go, but he was shaken up by the incident, which comes as no surprise. The police then issued the pair a stern warning, but told them they were free to go. But that's when the twins made an awful decision that would finally see them apprehended. Just 4 hours later, they called for another ride from the University of California, Irvine, once again pretending they just carried out a bank robbery. Bystanders once again called the police, who this time were less than inclined to issue a mere warning. The twins were arrested and charged with false imprisonment, but that charge was later reduced when they pleaded guilty. They were each ordered to complete 160 hours of community service, to pay restitution to the victims, and they remained on probation for 12 months. Number 4. For some time, Trey Sesler was better known by his YouTube audience as Mr. Anime. On his channel, he uploaded videos in which he reviewed both old and new anime series and movies, and in a very short time span, he gained thousands of followers. He also created a channel called LensCap Productions, on which he reviewed anime, but sometimes uploaded original content that's been described by some as comedic. Many people consider Sesler to be one of the first people to create an anime-oriented YouTube channel, but at times he would touch on disturbing events, such as incidents that had taken place at schools around the country. In one video that was posted on the 9th of March, 2012, he spoke about NEETs, which are people who aren't employed, being educated, or in training. In a nutshell, they're unemployed people who have no desire to find employment or study towards a specific career. Trey goes on to state that these people are out of control, which is ironic given the events that unfolded just 11 days later in his hometown of Waller, Texas. Just weeks later, he uploaded a video called Mr. Anime is Planning Something, in which he stated that he was going to take a few weeks off from creating content, and on the 13th of March, he announced that he'd found a new job with a filmmaking company. Following this career, though, would impact the number of videos he would create, and so he decided to stick to blogging instead. He added that everything in his life was going well, but it would later come to light that he had received no such job offer. At the time, Trey's grandmother had passed away, and he'd been living in her house alone after falling out with his father over the fact that he hadn't finished college. On the 9th of March, he was alone once more when he started consuming large amounts of alcohol. Later that evening, his parents' neighbors contacted the police to report that they'd heard some loud noises coming from next door. Unbeknownst to them, Trey had traveled to the family home armed with several weapons, and once there, attacked and ended the lives of his mother, father, and brother. He then used his parents' phone to send text messages to their respective employers, in which he stated that they would not be going back to work the next day since they were no longer alive. He then took a nap next to his mother's body before traveling to Weller High School, where he sat in his car for a long time. He eventually drove to Magnolia, where he went to a friend's house, and it was here that he was taken into custody after the police attended the crime scene. They hadn't responded to the initial call made by the neighbors, but then conducted a welfare check at the home when family members were unable to contact his parents. Investigators would report that while Trey was being questioned after his arrest, he seemed mentally unstable. He'd burst into tears one moment, and the next seemingly had no emotions at all. When his grandmother's house was searched, several more firearms were recovered, and at his trial, the YouTuber pleaded guilty to all charges against him, and he was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Number 3. Prank channels on YouTube have always been pretty popular, with some of these creators boasting millions of subscribers. Most of these videos contain harmless pranks, such as people scaring each other with air horns or disguising themselves as a tree to frighten innocent passersby. But occasionally, the desire to gain more subscribers drives content creators to do the unthinkable, and they carry out pranks that, in retrospect, were a very bad idea indeed. One such video, created by YouTuber Mona Lisa Perez, turned out to not only be irresponsible, but fatal. The channel, La Mona Lisa, is the creation of Mona Lisa Perez, and she and her then-boyfriend, Pedro Ruiz III, would upload vlogs about their daily lives, their relationship, and a few pranks and stunts. Pedro was also planning on starting his own channel, and in a video that was never published but shown to news outlets, he explains that he and Mona Lisa were about to carry out the most dangerous stunts they had ever attempted. She had also posted to her social media accounts, stating that the stunt was Pedro's idea and that she was hesitant about it. It would later come to light that Pedro had thought of the idea while trying to figure out how to gain more subscribers, and he felt that if the stunt was a success, they would be hugely popular. In the clip shown by news channels, Pedro can be seen showing a firearm to the camera and detailing what the stunt involved. He also set up a thick, hardcover encyclopedia and explained that he'd be holding it in front of his chest while Mona Lisa fired at him. He was certain that the book would offer sufficient protection from the projectile and that he would walk away unscathed. Just moments before the stunt was performed, Mona Lisa could be heard stating she didn't want to go through with the stunt and that she was frightened, since she'd never fired a weapon before. She added that were the stunt to go wrong, her life would be ruined, and she felt that going through with it wasn't okay. But Pedro remained adamant, stating that he trusted no one more than her, and eventually, dressed in just a t-shirt with no further protection, he stated he was ready. He then held the book, on which the couple had drawn a target, up to his chest as Mona Lisa took aim, but as soon as she fired from a foot away, her worst fears were realized. The book failed to stop the projectile, and Pedro was hit in the chest. She immediately called 911, stating she'd accidentally wounded her boyfriend. When the police and paramedics arrived at the scene, it was already too late, and Pedro was pronounced deceased. Mona Lisa would later state that she had only agreed to the stunt after Pedro carried out a demonstration during which he fired at several books, all of which managed to stop the projectile. She was immediately arrested and charged with second-degree manslaughter. She pleaded guilty and as a result received a sentence of just 6 months in prison, with 90 days served under home confinement. Number 2. In May of 2020, YouTuber Corey Barrie had totaled 364,000 subscribers. He created videos about his everyday life and could often be seen spending time with his friends, getting a makeover, and on occasion performing stunts or pranks. He was also a Twitch streamer, and on the 10th of May 2020, he uploaded a video to YouTube called "Deleting this video in 24 hours," which may seem ominous, but he merely explained that the following day was his birthday, and he'd be starting a live stream on Twitch at 1 p.m. He added that his roommates would be joining him on the stream, and that they might get a little intoxicated, but that it would all be good fun. The video is still available on his channel, since he never had the chance to delete it, as the title suggested. Later that same day, Corey and another YouTuber, Daniel Silva, who's associated with the Ink Master YouTube channel, which focuses on tattoo artistry, met up and were driving in a 2020 McLaren 600 LT. Silva was behind the wheel, and according to reports on the incident, he was driving at a high rate of speed along Huston Street in Los Angeles when tragedy struck. Silva lost control of the vehicle, which then left the road and collided with a stop sign and a tree on the corner of Carpenter Avenue. Silva, upon realizing what had happened, managed to exit the vehicle and then attempted to flee, but he was apprehended by bystanders who then contacted the police to report the crash. Corey was seriously injured, and when paramedics arrived, he was extracted from the car. He was then rushed to the hospital, but efforts to save his life failed. He was determined he was in the passenger seat of the vehicle and that he wasn't in control of the car at any point before the crash. Silva was arrested and charged with murder, a charge to which he pleaded not guilty. The charge was later changed to gross vehicular manslaughter, to which he pleaded no contest. He was sentenced to 364 days in a county jail in order to complete 250 hours of community service. He would also remain on probation for 5 years. In the aftermath, Corey's parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against him and his company, which is called Daniel Silva Tattoos, since they felt that he was negligent while behind the wheel of a very fast vehicle. They stated that he failed to use reasonable care while in control of the car, and that he traveled at high speeds in an area that isn't conducive to such driving. They also alleged he'd been consuming alcohol prior to the accident, and that he may have been under the influence of illegal substances when the crash occurred. They suggest that these substances were provided to him by his tattoo company, but he denied these claims. He stated that Corey's passing was partially his own fault, since he knew there was a chance he would lose his life upon entering the vehicle. It's not known what the result of the wrongful death lawsuit was. Silva claims to have no memory of the crash or the fact that he ever tried to leave the scene. Number 1. Germán Loera Acosta, the creator of the YouTube channel Germán Loera MX, is living proof that we cannot believe everything we read and see on the internet. Acosta, who describes himself as an entrepreneur, used his channel to provide advice on financial matters, and on occasion gave public talks on the subject. In one video that was uploaded on the 11th of July, 2017, Acosta is seen appearing at the World Congress of Young Leaders for Peace in Mexico conference. In the video description reads, quote, "If you can't find your dream job, create it and share it with a team." Let's remember that before being entrepreneurs, engineers, graduates, or company employees, we're human. We must treat others and ourselves as such, regardless of the position we hold. Judging by the way he dresses in his videos and the advice that he provides, it appears that Acosta had made a financial success of his life, but his actions in February of 2018 seem to suggest otherwise. Most people who have steady jobs and who have gained financial success are content to keep making money legally, and they usually remain on the right side of the law. But others are never satisfied with the money they have, even when they're able to live in comfort, as Acosta claimed he was. In February of 2018, he, along with 5 other men, rented a house in their hometown of Chihuahua, Mexico, with a very specific goal in mind. They'd been keeping track of a 33-year-old lawyer named Tanya Denise, and had hatched a diabolical plan. After the house was rented, they followed her around and eventually grabbed her off the street and forced her into their vehicle. They then drove to the house where Talia was held hostage and told that she would only be released once she had transferred $103,000 of Bitcoin to them. Acosta then contacted the police anonymously via the internet to make their demands known. The Bitcoin was transferred, but the authorities were able to track the currency, despite the fact that Acosta had covered his tracks very carefully. The police would later state that he definitely knew what he was doing in hiding his true identity, but that he had not taken all the factors such as tracking into consideration, which sealed his fate, along with those of his accomplices. After receiving the funds, Acosta contacted Bitso, a Mexican-based cryptocurrency company, and asked to meet with the firm's founders, claiming to be the head of marketing for the biggest Bitcoin casinos in the world. The company never responded, likely because they didn't take his claims seriously. The anti-kidnap unit of the Chihuahua prosecutor's office was able to track the group of kidnappers, and with the aid of the state's cybercrime department, took all 6 men into custody. This must have come as quite a surprise to Acosta, who was certain that they'd managed to remain anonymous, but the reality of the situation soon became very clear. During the arrest, all of the pilfered funds were recovered, along with 3 vehicles, a firearm, and the cell phones that were used to carry out the ransom negotiations. Companies that had done business with Acosta in the past immediately distanced themselves from him, and released statements in which they confirmed they would no longer be associating with him. He was eventually sentenced to 50 years behind bars, and the group was ordered to pay over $20,000 in fines. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.